Right now, Vladimir Putin is fucking desperate. Now, if you look at the philosopher Henry David Thoreau, he wrote about the consequences of living an empty life that was filled with the void and of any morality. The mass of men lead lives of quite desperation, he wrote, and from the desperate city you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. And Thoreau might have had Russian President Vladimir Putin in mind when he described that situation. Now, desperation takes many forms in dictators. When despots get truly unhinged, they crush information, as Putin did last week with his draconian censorship laws and press restrictions, including blocking Facebook and foreign news outlets. His actions led the steadfast British Broadcasting Corporation to shut down its operations in Russia amid an historic crackdown on information. Now, day by day, information sources in Russia have closed down as live broadcasts from Ukraine continue with heartbreaking images and news. And we are being bombarded with information from the battlefield, but Putin is trying to close hearts and minds inside his country. Now, some news outlets inside Russia have tried to continue, but repression is hard. Now, RT America, the Russian state media outlet, laid off a lot of staff. The staff of an independent Russian media outlet, Rain TV network, also resigned. The independent radio in Russia has since been silenced. The crackdown is so forceful that Russia's Novoya Gazeta, a major independent newspaper, announced it would no longer cover news of the war on Ukraine. And this is the same newspaper whose editor, Dmitry Muratov, had shared the Nobel Peace Prize. Information is the oxygen of life. It brings light to the darkest of every corner that we see. But Putin has tried to squash that information. But it tends to seep out and stream itself into human awareness, and no crackdown will fully succeed in the modern world because propaganda has its limitations. Um, a scholar, Moises Naim, has written, "The explosion of information and the media online has created opportunities for deception, manipulation, and control that simply doesn't exist as recently as a decade ago. Declining trust in the traditional institutions that once served as gatekeepers to the public, to the public sphere basically, has vastly lowered the reputational cost of the bald-faced lying that we see every day. And the globalization of polarization has created new opportunities for alliances with leaders who are using similar wedge issues in other countries. This results as a crisis in the sustainability of the democratic government on a scale that has not been seen since the rise of fascists across Europe in the 1930s. Now, for decades, American non-governmental organizations such as Internews, they have trained independent journalists in Russia in radio and television, print, and online journalism. And we should continue to train reporters even as this crackdown takes place. And we need journalists now more than ever to cover stories and bring news of even the darkest kind that we know. And make no mistake, Russians know what is happening in Ukraine. Russians have learned about this outrageous assault on the life and people of Ukraine from their phones, despite an ongoing propaganda campaign by Putin to build a rationale for stealing the country. Despite 22 years of being fed false information, Russians have learned everything about the world. They have traveled, they have studied, and they have worked and lived in an information age. We should not underestimate their knowledge or their understanding of propaganda. And many say that Putin's propaganda is not new. But in the last few months, Putin has moved from propaganda to a new form of public diplomacy, obfuscation. He has sought to confuse the world with conflicting statements about war and peace. He has sought to use the fog of war as a fog machine, hoping to cloud hearts and minds. Um, Cutting off information has short-term benefits and long-term harm. Ultimately, people want to know what is happening around them, and with trust in public institutions now low, even in Russia, especially among young people, information will travel to individuals, and those brave Russians who took to the streets and were swept up the streets by police will be followed by more and more courageous souls for whom freedom of information matter. The Russian tanks will keep advancing, but so will truth. Um, it always marches on and triumphs because it seeks neither friends nor enemies, and truth exists for truth's sake. And at the end of Thoreau's quote from Walden, he writes that a characteristic of freedom is not to do desperate things. But Putin is neither wise nor learned. The emptiness of his soul is all that is left, and history will remember him for his reckless desperation. See, for me, I'm the type of person who likes to who basically likes to know what's going on around me. So I care about the war that's going on. I basically want to get factual information. So that's how I am. and Putin's trying to block all of that. So he's trying to basically sell you a lie, and that's basically what we don't like. So we want to be factual when it comes to like reporting news stories and stuff like that. So if you like the video, get the video, like, and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. And you can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon, which is in the About section of my YouTube on my YouTube page, and so you can support the work even further.